So welcome to the Inlet podcast. I'm David Stiles.
And I'm Charlie Carlson. Welcome. This is a home for ideas, culture, wisdom, and history of the Eastern Shore to flow. So we've got our lovely logo over here. We're official.
We are official. This is the first episode that we are recording under the Inlet name.
The Inlet name. And
yes.
How better to bring back Dr. Alex Foxworthy. Thanks for being here. Yay. I like the little clap. Today or last time we talked a little bit about some of his science, some of his research. We got into some interesting AI conversations. But let's start off a little bit with maybe like wrapping up the semester at the college and like what sort of things you're going through. Like, what are you working on right now?
Oh gosh. I'm trying to wrap up some projects. I've got two interns that work with me. They're doing the tire wear sampling we were talking about earlier. And we're putting on a conference. We're putting on a conference. I should tell you guys this in July. So people are invited from, of course, UVA, and Oyster and VIMS, although I think VIMS is going to have very few people because it's kind of out of their schedule for their undergraduate students as they come through. Virginia Tech should have a couple people coming.
It's like a little research symposium sort of deal.
Yeah, for the people that are around here, the research groups that are around here. I did not reach out to NASA, although that would be a good idea as well.
Yeah, for future.
Yes, but Sherry, I can get you a contact about that.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, very quickly.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, and we hope that this is, we can expand from here because there's a lot of groups here on the shore. And I don't know about NASA, but all the other ones kind of already do this internally. Like UVA does a UVA presentation at the end of their summer research experience.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
VIMS does. And, presenting, if you go to UVA and you present at UVA, it's kind of like presenting to your mom. It's kind of not a big deal. And it doesn't, it's good to do. And it does add something to your resume, but it's better if you go to like a regional science conference and you present to other people.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
there's a benefit to the student in that way. And I really hope that ultimately by looking at what everybody is doing, each other, and we get an idea of really what's happening on the shore and bring these people together. And I don't know, perhaps even start to think about why we're doing this and what it's for. That kind of ties back to this, what we're talking about, this climate equity group that's working on the shore.
Yeah.
Kind of what's the point or what's the ultimate goal? And I don't mean to be too reductive because it doesn't necessarily need to be one, all the time. But I think when it comes to ecology and the environment, it's kind of good to have one.
Oh yeah, for sure. We actually had the discussion on here not too long ago about how that's one thing that NASA does really well. And I can say a lot of bad things about the government as a whole. Yeah. But it's the one thing that we do really well, especially at NASA Wallops, is environmental. And we have a very small footprint and we launch things, we put things in space and the environment does not get harmed at all. It's really cool. Yeah. And so, that's why I'm excited about this. Yeah, I'll get you what Sherry's contact information because she's going to be really excited about that. And the cool part about it is that she's up in Goddard now, and so she'll be able to spread even the word even further off the shore about what we're actually doing here on the shore.
Yeah,
that was always my complaint. Like as a marine scientist, was to have like even separate colleges who are almost like in their own zones on the seaside. Right. Like UVA has the Oyster region and VIMS has, Willis Wharf and all of that. But I love that we're finally like trying to bring everybody into the scene to share, right? Because you brought up something that I had never thought about before and was how unique this area is for specific types of science. And like your specific research with, air particulates, being like geographically separated from a lot of different areas. And I think if we can meet and prioritize things that make sense for the Eastern Shore as scientists, and I love that. But just share, can you talk a little bit about why you appreciate this region for your specific research?
Yeah, so I am specifically, I started here, the National Algae Bureau station. That's where all of the data for pollen as well mold spores come from. When you look at like weather.com or pollen.com or one of those sites, ostensibly that prediction is being drawn from actual real world data.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking reality, it basically isn't, because there was not a station in Virginia, like the whole state, before we started this one on the shore. And of course, you would still get a prediction for wherever you happen to be.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of where I started doing that, actually, because I feel like something in the environment is making me feel ill, and I have no idea what that is, and nobody around me could tell me either. So that's kind of why I started going down that rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
But once I was there, I started to see as well that there are some advantages to working on the shore, particularly for the air, of course, the water as well. But because all of these places that do air monitoring, which there's only like 50 in the whole country that are under the National Algae Bureau.
Yeah, that seems like a small number.
Yeah, it's insanely small. It's down from a peak of, I think, 150 in the 80s. It's only declined, since the heyday. But
why do you think that is? Why do you think that we've gone from 150 to 50 across the whole country?
Yeah, because it's a tremendous pain in the ass. It's a manual process that you have to pay in order to have the privilege of doing. Is you have to get training, and it's not easy. You're literally just identifying pollen manually through the microscope, and the pollen is like a more or less a sphere. Almost all of them are spherical, and they may have slits and little holes.
Yeah, I want to see what that looks like.
Yeah.
Like do you have any photos or?
Yeah, if you just put in, I don't know, any pollen really. How about birch pollen?
Birch pollen.
And you'll see that it's got this complex three-dimensional shape, but they're all spheres and they all have slits and holes. And depending on how that lands on the slide, it could look very, very different. And they all look very similar to one another.
I was going to say those. Wow, those look like phytoplankton, man. That looks like I'm looking at a phytoplankton underneath the ocean.
This looks like some beat up
pine
pollen.
Yeah, I mean, that looks like a coffee bean right there, something like a seed, So, man, can we like strain pollen and is there caffeine in pollen?
So I don't know.
This is they don't look like that. There's like a colorized image. It makes it a lot easier to see.
What type of microscope are you using?
Just regular light microscope.
Okay.
There's not really an advantage to any other form at this point in time. There is some autofluorescence perhaps that can happen.
That's what I was gonna ask, if you stained them or anything.
Well, I do stain them, but basically pollen just stains with the standard stain. It stains pink.
Okay.
Which I can't tell what color it is anyway, so it really doesn't help. But it is difficult to identify. It takes a long time and it's very slow, and you don't get any kind of financial reward, for doing this. And all of that together is why nobody does this. And I think the National Algae Bureau is also kind of this old organization that hasn't really kept up with modern development. So I also run up there this AI device, this Pollen Sense AI, which is this it's this box. It's like a tissue box size device that's basically sucking air onto a sticky piece of tape that's constantly running past a little lens that's, microscope lens, and it's taking pictures and it's sending that to their network of computers, and then it's identifying it.
Wow.
As it's happening. And so the National Algae Bureau has rejected this. They think it's not accurate enough.
Did they say why, or they just don't?
Yeah, no, I talked to them, and they're right that it hasn't been accurate enough, when it first started. But, this stuff is like bound to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's better than nothing.
Right.
Yeah. So this is the consumer facing app right here. And you can see, let me show you for example, tree pollen. You can see the species of trees that it's seeing, and you can see this readout, by the hours of the day, what
That's
the level
pretty cool.
is. And I mean, this is like definitely where things are going.
Mm-hmm.
And that was started by a graduate student, or not graduate student. Well, he was a graduate student of one of the original. I don't know if she was a founder of the National Allergy Bureau, but she's one of the people on the board. So they had some kind of falling out or something, long ago. And there's some issues. They tell me as well that the company Pollen Sense wants access to all of the National Allergy Bureau data, like they want to own it, and the National Allergy Bureau is, not down with that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's some stuff happening behind the scenes there that these people are not like my BFFs. So they're telling me all this stuff, but I don't think they're not necessarily going to tell me the full truth. I'm sure that they think their viewpoint is correct.
Yeah.
In any case, the AI, I think, is going to run it all over, whether you agree with these people or not. And in fact, last week I went to Margaret Mulholland's lab at ODU.
Margie, yeah.
Yeah. And she runs this thing called the Plankton Scope.
Yeah.
Which is exactly the same thing except for water.
Yeah, she does like red tide events, I think, dinoflagellates.
Yeah, that's right. So she has this sampling device that they're working towards being able to make a predictive model with real-time environmental monitoring to tell you when an algal bloom is going to happen.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing.
There you go.
So,
there we go.
Yeah, and if you go down to the map, you can see all the stations in the U.S. Oh, sorry.
Hey, check you
There
out.
we go.
Here
There
he
we
is
go.
right there.
He's famous.
So if you say view all stations, you'll see how pitiful this is. These are all the National Allergy Bureau stations. So like what's happening in North and South Dakota, nobody knows.
I tell you what,
Yeah.
when I was in California, it was so dry from probably like April all the way to December. Like it wouldn't rain at all. And
Yeah.
the allergens out
We're on the
there,
map. Look at us.
they crushed me. Like it was hard to adjust to
Yeah.
out there. But then when I came back here, it was even harder to adjust back
Yeah.
here. It took me forever to finally get used to the pollen again.
in,
because it used to
in
tear me up.
California.
No, when I came back here, because that
Oh, yeah.
destroyed my whole entire everything. And I get back here and it's like I'm just a baby again, like trying to get used to this pollen, and it destroyed me for a couple of years.
I was thinking about, because it seemed like we had, I've had a lot of my students have had like really bad allergies,
Yeah.
but it was like a wave and then it kind of stopped for a little bit and then came back
Yeah.
and that kind of is in my short time here on this earth when interpreting climate, seems like things are warming faster and then sort of fluctuating, and then we eventually warm, like the seasons are coming earlier. What effect does that have on pollen abundance?
Yeah.
Or
It's a good question, and I don't really know the answer. I've seen different data. One point of view would say that it's all shifting, and it definitely is shifting, where you have a pollen season starts earlier, but perhaps also ends earlier, so that the total amount is not necessarily different or worse.
okay.
But that that still may produce problems, because if you are allergic to, I don't know, let's say juniper or something, but you live in a place that does not normally have juniper, but it changes now.
Yeah.
You may have it.
Yeah.
But there's another point of view, which I think is probably correct, though I can't say for sure, is that it is getting actually worse. That there's just overall more pollen and perhaps more pollen fragmentation, which is a whole another thing that people are just starting to really look into.
Okay.
It certainly is getting wetter, and that's going to have an effect, not on pollen release, but also mold spores and on the associated biotoxins, which may be just as bad or worse.
I've
Perhaps
seen
worse.
The last couple of years, the amount of pollen that I capture in the air at one time is amazing. Like I've actually witnessed a group of pines just spit. At the same time. It is one of the coolest things, but most terrifying things that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I've never noticed that before until the last couple of years, where it's as soon as you walk outside, like it is thick, and it happens overnight, and it happens so fast, and the amount of pollen is just it's crazy. You can actually witness just the last few years.
Yeah. I think the reason it's hard to really know the answer to that question is because of the way the National Allergy Bureau operates. There's these 50 stations. Not all of them have been stable over time, and not all of them have the same person. So like if I trained you to count pollen, I'm sure your number would be different than mine.
Yeah.
There's individual variation and individual skill as well. It's hard to do. So there's not necessarily, 50 years of continuous data that covers the entire US that you could look at and really know what the answer is to that question. Now, of course, you have an AI device. As soon as that's working, you just plop them everywhere and you'll start to know, And I think the same, the reason I'm really interested in the AI, because as I think about what's bothering me and the people around me, I start to realize that it's almost hopeless for me to be able to figure that out with that one station on the top of the school, because I'm not doing it every day, and the best I can do is tell you what happened last week, whenever I have time enough to do that. But right now it takes like one slide, one day would take me like 2 or 3 hours because of the volume of pollen. It's just so much.
Yeah.
So it's hard to keep up with that. And then of course it's outside. And most of the time, like on average, humans are inside like 80% of the time, which is like the same amount of time that a sperm whale is coming out of the water to breathe.
Nice.
So like whatever is outside, maybe not that important because it's going to be more important what's ending up inside.
So aside from using the device that you have at the school, what other means of collection have you actually used just recently?
Yeah, sure.
You want to share that about how you're getting samples from other places?
Yep. So we are taking samples right now of tire wear particles in the students. Actually, we started out with this idea, which was a really exciting idea, but didn't pan out. But anyway, of course, let me give the background, because if you're not aware that tire particles are in the air, like it's...
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah, I didn't know either before I did this. And like, it's obvious in retrospect that the tires are wearing down and they're,
Was it one of those things that you stumbled upon it, or you just went into it having some knowledge that you could see that?
I went to this conference in New Orleans with my two previous students, and this guy, John Shane, who was one of the teachers there, is an indoor air quality expert. And he uses these little air cassettes. He told me, like, just put a piece of Scotch tape on there and hold it out the window, when you take your Uber to get to the conference.
Right.
So I did that. And I was like, holy shit. I mean, it's just like absolutely plastered with tire particles,
Visible with the naked eye, or microscopic type?
If you held it up to the light, you could see them. I mean, they're because they have such a huge range in size, they're like nanometer scale to maybe 300 or 400 micrometers, which is big enough you could see it.
Yeah.
Not easily, but maybe like like this speck on the table. So yeah, I mean, you could see it, and I've seen it a million times. I just never knew what I was looking at. And then it was obvious because I was on the road, and this dude is telling me, well, if it's a black opaque particle that looks like sort of cloudy, it's probably tires. And so that got me thinking, partly because it's easy to do. Pollen identification is hard, and I actually can't train an intern to identify pollen, because by the time I would train them to do it, they would be leaving. Yeah. It's a 2-year college. So it's never going to work out. But tire is a little bit easier because it's black. And there's not a whole lot of other things in the air that are...
Hopefully not.
Yeah, right?
There are a few. So there's a spore, a Niagara spore, but it's perfectly spherical, so it's easy to tell apart. And then all the other things that are black, for the most part, you also don't want to breathe, diesel exhaust fumes. You don't want to breathe ash. And you can sort of tell the difference, but among those things, but they're all basically bad. So, it's fine. We just quantify opaque particles. And so we had the idea, there's many communities on the shore, like Dreamland, that's like adjacent to the highway.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking, like, well, those people are just getting sprayed with this shit like all day, every day, because there's no plant cover at all. It's just a highway and then the house.
Yeah. A lot of people's houses are right off of 13 here.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So we started measuring, and the college gave us this convenient location where we, of course, can access the highway. It's right there.
Right.
So originally we started sampling by the highway, and then maybe like 30 feet back from the highway, and then also in the woods 30 feet back, with the idea that the woods, the plant cover is going to be protective.
Some filter.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that was the original idea. And I was really excited about that because you identify a problem and a potential solution. Then you can say to the people of Dreamland and I'm not trying to single them out, but any of these groups, like you're harming the health of you're potentially harming the health of your inhabitants. And one easy way to fix that is by planting some shrubs or whatever.
Exactly.
But that didn't work out. So, we started measuring in the woods. And I my first measurement was promising. The woods had less stuff than the open area. But then after that, sample after sample, actually the woods had more. And there's a lot of reasons why that could be. I mean, it could be an artifact. I'm still not sure whether they truly have more or not. Mm-hmm. But, one way that it could make sense, if it's a filter, since the existence of the trees and the existence of the highway,
it just stays there.
Yeah, shit's been getting stuck in the tree,
right. Just collects.
Yeah, and then it's like if you're wearing a mask, it's going to protect what gets into your mouth. But if you are inside of the mask, like in between the layers of the mask, you're still getting all that stuff. So, and I still, I hate to even say this because I hate, I'm not like speaking out against trees or something, but.
Oh no, what did we just step into?
Whoa, can't go there.
So we thought that too, maybe we did this in the winter. And because there's no foliage, that probably when there is foliage, it's going to be a much better filter. And there's a big difference, I think, between being in the woods versus behind the woods. And there's got to be some like magical distance, where majority of the stuff is knocked down. And I thought that was going to be very straightforward and easy to do, but it wasn't. So we ended up changing the question to one that we could actually answer. And I have to keep in mind, like, I'm not primarily running a research lab. I'm primarily running an educational facility. So, they need to be able to do finish something and like sink their teeth into that and get the experience. So we changed it to just measuring the concentration at different distances, at the highway versus at the building. Acute exposure, like 10-minute samples versus long-term exposure, 7-day samples. And right now they're processing the 7-day samples.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah, and it's sort of what you would expect. It's kind of weird. I mean, on some days the acute exposure is the same between the building and the highway, and then other days it's maybe like 3 or 4 times worse. As you would expect by the highway. The highway being right next to the highway is definitely overall worse. Mm-hmm. But how much worse? I don't know. And that's kind of what where I'm at now to be able to say something about that. It's going to be still tricky because the people that have done the human risk analysis, which by the way was sponsored by American Tire Association.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, they determined there's this basically little to no
this stuff up,
little to no risk. But what they're saying is that there's little to no risk based on the concentration that it's typically found in the air. And I would argue that the concentration is totally dependent on where you are.
Is it like parts per million, parts per billion?
So that's the other problem, is that they use some quantitative mass-based method, like a mass spec or something like this, to first of all know the chemical composition of the thing that they're sampling, and then the proportion of the total weight that is that substance.
Yeah.
Since we don't do any of those things, we're measuring particles visually, then I can't really compare my concentration to theirs, but I will be able to say, it's on average, it's like 5 times worse.
Yeah.
To be next to the highway than not.
So what have you actually been doing with Mr. McCarter, Bill McCarter, and going?
Oh yeah. So we went up and sampled at altitude, I think 500, 2,500, 4,500, 6,500 feet. mostly just for fun, but also, to see what's up there. And yeah, I mean, it's somewhat surprisingly, there's a ton of stuff on that day at 500 feet. Also, there's still plenty at 25 and 45. And then around 65, it's really thins out, at least on that day. And these are 6-minute samples. So, I can't really say that this is any kind of like truth of what's actually out there.
What was the actual the weather that day? How was it when you went up? Was it cloudy? Was it overcast? Was it?
No,
what was
it
the
was
ceiling?
it was very clear.
Okay.
Yeah. And this, maybe we'll follow this up. There's some logistical issues, of course, that make it difficult to make a student project that's around going up in an airplane over and over.
Well, talk to NASA.
Well, that's what we do.
They send a lot of rockets up.
No, that's what we did. I actually worked in Earth Sciences with the aircraft office for a few years. And we did all of this on a C-130 flying around the world doing air samples.
Really?
And yes, we did. And we did it very well. And we worked with a lot of different colleges and universities. And we worked with NASA Langley with a couple. ACT was one of them. It's a couple acronyms for the air samples that they're doing. But yeah, I mean, we did. I did that for 4 years.
Did it stop?
Wow.
Well, yeah, because funding. Just like what's happening there's, notice all these stations, they're losing funding because it's going somewhere else. And, of course, now it's not sexy anymore to sample the air around the world to check for anything that's going on with our planet.
It's
now
no longer sexy.
It's gung ho, they're
Space.
full in. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Human exploration.
Yeah.
Full on now. I mean,
we
it's
don't care about
on.
this Earth anymore. We're just ready to leave.
It is. We're looking elsewhere because we're leaving here and we're never looking back. So,
you cool with that?
What's that?
You cool with that?
Dude, let's go.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, why else? I've done a lot on this planet.
Yeah.
I'm ready to, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's do it. My wife thinks I'm crazy. Because if they came to me and like tomorrow and said, hey, dude, you want to go to space? I'm like, let's roll. Let's go right now. And she's like,
you would be.
How dare you? I was like, why not? I would love to do that.
Would you go to space? Would you go to Mars? Colonize Mars?
Oh, gosh. I mean, if I didn't have kids, yeah, but I don't think anybody's going to
take
ask
your
me
kids.
anytime soon.
Yes. Yeah. That trip, Mars, no. But I would go to space. I'd go to the moon in a heartbeat. And hang out there for a little bit and go on the dark side and see a few things and then just kind of stroll back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not to live there, just to chill.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought we were talking about like leaving permanently and living on another planet.
If everybody would go with me, definitely. That'd be cool, man.
Yeah.
Just take everybody. Let's go.
Yeah.
Oof, but you'd be locked into a small space with them forever.
Yeah, but we already are now, and we're getting along. Okay, I mean,
okay.
This is the Brick Room. What do you think of the Brick Room?
Yeah, we got to name this. Yeah, name of this. Yeah,
Ted Shockley. He said the Brick Room, and we almost called this podcast the Brick Room because of that. We went back and forth, but then Lucas was like the Inlet. It was like light bulb.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I mean, like, but that highlights kind of my original question, like the importance of the Eastern Shore and sampling.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I was getting to it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And like
that's how we do here.
Yeah, the fact that like we found, or you guys found all of these particles like in a relatively remote area, right?
Yeah.
Sort of shows that's like the background.
Yeah, right. Like, and to get back to the original question, what I think is the advantage of the shore is that it's geographically isolated in a way, and it's flat. And so the people that live here are going to be exposed to more or less the same stuff. Let me take that back. They're not going to be exposed to the same stuff necessarily, but there will be less variability than, in a mountainous area or in an urban area because, there's not all that stuff getting in the way of the travel of air.
Well, what about with all the air traffic here? Because this is a major corridor going from New York down to Miami. I mean, we see more air traffic going over us than most of the United States.
Even with the military too.
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah. Big time.
I don't know. I mean, that may have some contribution to the exhaust or combustion particles that are in the air. I really don't know. It's hard to tease that out because there's plenty of other places for combustion particles to be coming from here on the shore. We burn all these tomato steaks and things, in this agricultural setting.
Well, what do you think about weather modification, though?
I was just going to go there, like cloud seeding and stuff.
I've witnessed this firsthand living in Dubai, like I've seen them doing it there, creating rain, and just recently they had like major flooding because they couldn't stop it. They couldn't turn the faucet off.
Oh, really?
Really?
And so, but I've been seeing a lot lately in different areas, not just the United States, but the world, that, England is trying to pass where they can start doing weather modification.
Wow.
And then you see on the flip side, state of Florida has just introduced a bill in their house, not against, like, leave us alone, do not spray our skies type thing.
Yeah.
So they're like, we're not doing that. We're not participating in that. And so, I mean, what are your thoughts on weather modification and or cloud seeding
we can get rid of the pollen.
Yeah. I mean,
if we make it rain.
Right.
Yeah. I have no idea. I mean, I'm interested in the subject, I guess, in terms of dealing with climate change through engineering, like carbon capture.
Yeah, bioengineering and stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm open to the idea of experimentation for sure, but also, there's going to be unforeseen consequences almost certainly. But that's okay. We'll just go to Mars, I guess.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right. But no, because I've witnessed it firsthand too with not just with living in a region and actually seeing that these guys are creating rain. And then the things that we do with NASA for when we launch different like barium and strontium and TMA into the different levels of the atmosphere. And we're looking at those, we're studying those, like how they react in the different parts of the ionosphere, especially. A lot of interest in that with some of the scientists that I've worked with from Clemson and traveled all around the world. And we did these things because they were out looking to see, okay, what does this do in this level of the atmosphere? I mean, they were also testing for these exact things with weather modification. Yeah. Really, it was more they were trying to understand the communication law drop when the space shuttle went up. And so they found that during the early days of the space shuttle program, as it went up through the atmosphere in different levels, communications would do something wonky or they would pick up something different. Of course, there's multiple different types of air disturbances too, as it's going up. But that was one of the main reason why we were testing. But we do that though. Like we actually just launch in small little areas. We'll put something out there and go, okay, cool. That's what it does. All right. That's awesome. So, I mean, we've been doing this in small sample sizes for different things over the years, but now it's like to see that they're actually saying we're going to spray this large swath of the earth and let's just see what it does.
Yeah.
I mean, that's wild. Like why?
It is, yeah.
Like what is the main science behind that? Like what are they trying to achieve?
Yeah.
Because you have some on like the folks of the world, the powers that be that we talked about last time. No, but I'm just saying though, but you have some folks that are openly saying, we want to block out the sun. Bill Gates just said it recently.
Yeah.
And
what?
And yeah, I mean, it's plastered on there saying some of the things that they actually want to do.
Why? Why do they want to block out the sun?
That's what I want to know. I want to ask scientists like yourself, like what would even be the premise of this? I guess what are they trying to gain by doing any of that? What do you think? I mean, are there levels or different areas of the earth that are in like major distress and they're wanting to see that, man, we better do this or the earth is going to crumble? Or are they doing it for something else?
I don't know. I mean, the only avenue I'm aware of is climate engineering, carbon capture. And I really don't know much about that either. But I am encouraged, with these new sensors and AI technology. So, with the things like this planktoscope or with this pollen sensor, if you could start to build out in a very robust way, which I think basically doesn't exist right now, a model of, the environment, the atmosphere and the water, then I'd be more open to the idea you make some intervention to achieve the outcome that you want among those variables. But right now I feel like, how would you know what to do or what the effects of your
Right.
intervention is.
Right.
It's hard to know.
Yeah.
I mean, like NOAA is so long as they continue to exist, they're working right now on predictive forecasting as well for pollen fragmentation, algal blooms, all that stuff. You know, but it's not. None of that is validated at present. You can go on there and look at it and play with it, but there's no guarantee that any of it's actually accurate or correct. So, you know, if you don't have a measure of, if you perform some intervention, you don't know what the variables at play are, and you have no measure of the downstream effect, it's a little hard to understand why, you know, to make sense of that.
Right. And we can't lose entities like NOAA because especially now with our ever changing everything, it's just, I mean, it's not just climate, it's everything is changing now. And we need something like that just so we can kind of stay ahead of it.
Yeah.
You know, because weather is changing so fast, and the jet stream used to do kind of this number, and now it's like coming way up here and then going way down here. And you have all these huge vortices and stuff that are coming in now. It's like, do we need NOAA? Yeah. We need to make sure we have stuff like that so we can at least have some help in trying to navigate through all of this.
Yeah, those changes are mysterious to me. I mean, what I think is is being perceived that there's a struggle between us and China, you know, around science and technology primarily, and then, you know, economically downstream, in my view, is downstream of that. So then why do we cut funding to, you know, NIH and NSF and to NOAA? Like that part of it, it's not making sense to me.
Yeah.
I you know, I've been following along and I've been listening to what people are saying, like Scott Bessent, for example, and of course Trump and other people in that his sphere. And like, actually, it's been making sense to me, you know, up until recently. I'm not saying necessarily I agree with it, but finally I've realized, like, okay, there is some idea here. You know, there is some plan, but then I'm not sure anymore. You know, well, like what is?
Dude,
what
we're
is
dealing
this?
with the same thing right now because I'm leaving NASA, so I'm actually going.
Really?
I'm going to Rocket Lab.
Oh, okay.
So I start on Monday. Next Monday is my first day.
Nice.
So, but it's stuff that you know, I'm seeing the way that it's moving, and you know, it's leaving government. Space is going full commercial, and this is so I'm seeing it, and mum's the word right now inside the federal buildings of NASA Wallops, and everybody
inside word. This segment brought to you by NASA Wallops.
That's right. So I better be careful with what I say then.
Oh no,
right? Because I don't want to hurt a sponsor.
Say too much.
I don't want to upset a sponsor, right? No, but it's
Give us some good stuff.
I'm going to work. Oh, I'm going to work, and like everybody on our floor, it's some of the brightest, coolest people. Like we have such a tight group now, and they're from all around the world, and they are so smart. They're brains, and they're just awesome people, and we have great conversations. And now they walk around, they're like, man, like, dude, like we're going to have to move to Texas or Florida, where we have to leave here soon, and they know that's coming.
Yeah.
And so it's very hard to like focus on your day to day when you're like, man, I got to make some major life choices right now.
Absolutely.
And so I was faced with that, and I was like, you know, I see where this is going. The space exploration is all going to the private side. It's all going commercial. And even the latest budget from the government is showing this. I mean, it's data where they're pulling 26% of NASA's budget, and it's all from sciences. And so that's us. That's mostly us here, and that's why we're here in the testing that we do. And now that's going away. And so there's going to be a launch range. There's going to be a need for that, but everything else that's around it's going to be absorbed in this massive black hole where all this money is going to supposedly go now. And so it's like, it stinks. So making a long story short, like we're dealing with the same thing right now where we are. And that's why I decided to go ahead and say, you know what? Rocket Lab is where it's going. Like they're actually able to innovate. They're able to do things that we can't do anymore because of all the red tape now. Yeah. So it's like, I want to be a part of that. That's the cool stuff again. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm somewhat insulated from that in my current job, but yeah, a lot of the scientists that I know and talk to, well, not a lot of them, all of them are very have a lot of anxiety, and it's difficult to make future plans and to
Right.
hire people and to carry out your projects, under that. And yeah, it's very, I don't know. I don't understand it. I guess is the bottom line. I do understand the idea that there's a bunch of red tape and there's a bunch of inefficiencies, and perhaps we're spending money on questions that maybe we don't need to in many cases, or at least in some cases. And I could understand an argument for, overhauling or making this into like a more lean weapon or machine,
Right.
not literally.
Mhm.
But that part, it just doesn't seem to be happening. Where is the plan for that? And where is the description? I haven't seen it. I understand there's some things that NSF funds that maybe not the highest priority or the values of the current administration. But
So the local groups that we work with here, like the VIMs and those groups have been around for forever.
Yep.
And I mean, are they being hit with all of this as well? Like, is there anything that you're hearing from them at all?
I'm hearing stuff from UVA that they're
Yeah.
having trouble getting certain projects funded.
Yeah, and that's been massive for here. I mean, we've had, going back, like we really need, again, if like items as where the Gulf Stream is actually slowing now, and we've seen that for a while, and again, it's like losing NOAA, losing something like that where they're doing the water sample testing, they're looking at the species and look at migration patterns, and we need to understand that so again we can get ahead of whatever's changing.
Yeah.
And what advocates out there, especially on the shore right now, that you think that we should have like on this show or like talk to and really get the word out about the importance of their jobs and how we really need to focus on that.
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I mean, I was looking at your guest list earlier, and a lot of them are already on there. I think certainly Bo Lusk could be a good person to talk to.
Bo Lusk, yeah.
Cora, Ruth Bacher. I'm not sure if I said that correctly. Department of Wildlife Resources, and that's one I'm very interested in because they look at the shorebirds, and I'm not. I would like to hear somebody convince me that I should really care about those. I'm trying to be neutral
right.
one way or another, because that's kind of like, I think that's the type of thing that may be more easily perceived as being on the chopping block right now. And I'm not saying that it isn't important. I just I don't know why it is. And I'm not going to assume ahead of time that it's.
So like bird populations.
Yes. Like the piping plover or, whatever particular birds that they're interested in. Anyway, she'd be a good person to talk to about that. Shannon Alexander is.
That name sounds familiar.
Yeah, I'm sure you know her. She's kind of our.
You know her? Yeah.
Yeah. What is it? Department of Conservation? Yeah. So they do a lot of the, right. Like the planted native gardens and stuff. Like they've got rural health, the trails.
I think actually I met her the other day down at Savage Neck. Because I think
really?
she manages all of, like, she does
The signs
Savage
and
Neck,
stuff, yeah.
she does Cape Charles Natural Area.
And that's
Preserve.
Shannon Alexander?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We may be calling you.
We may. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we already actually had Bo Lusk on the list, though.
We do.
I think we did.
We did.
Yeah.
And then if you could get somebody, maybe Doug Higgins. Do you know Doug from Virginia Tech?
No.
So that is a great service because, that lab or that group, the Virginia Tech group here.
Ag Extension Agency. Yeah.
Yes. A lot of what they do is directly related to the income or production of our local farmers. I mean, more than their relationship to our community, even though you don't see it all the time, is probably more direct than the other groups.
Really?
I think so. I mean,
probably, yeah.
The eelgrass and the oyster castles and all that stuff is important, but that's mainly carried out by the Nature Conservancy, and then VIMS and UVA kind of study different aspects of it. But Doug is, predicting, diagnosing people's plant diseases so they can treat them and save their crops, and trying to predict what's coming, looking at the movement of the spores across the U.S. So it has like a definite actionable outcome.
Are the farmers seeing different things happening right now? Are you getting any word from them about just how,
I don't
the
know.
plants
Different
are reacting
pests,
and
yeah.
how, I mean, is
I don't know. Doug would be the person to ask for sure.
that'd be good to know, because I really want to hear that too, as things are changing.
Yeah, and what he says is that they may not tell you if you ask them directly. Maybe if you look at the disaggregated data, because if you're a farmer and I'm a farmer, and I happen to know that your particular crop is failing, that could be a business advantage for me. So
Touche.
Yeah. So that I don't know the truth of that, but Doug will be able to tell you.
Okay.
It does. So since I've been at Broadwater, we started this ag program, the Sustainable Ag Program. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And we started introducing some of these concepts like cover cropping and crop rotation and all of these other, non like massive landscape evolution type of like manipulation techniques.
Okay.
And started off super controversial. Like all of the farming families were totally against it. We're like, no, this is the way we do it, but actually for career day, I'm not sure, Mr. Sturgis.
Lee?
Yeah, Lee Sturgis came in, and I picked his brain because he had a big tractor and all the kids were looking at it. And he was like talking a lot about fertilizer input and how fertilizers have gone through the roof in terms of expense.
Wow.
And how now they're starting to adopt some of these sustainable practices to reintroduce nitrogen and, like having a cover crop that's holding the soil. So it seems like what you were saying, farming is a network, and people are starting to catch on to ways to save money and possibly, preserve the cropland that we do have here. So that's really exciting.
Yeah.
And it was you that brought it up at Earth Day. And we can kind of like transition to the climate. What is it called? The climate equity.
Climate Equity Group was the original name. It might still be called that, but the tool now is called the Livability Hub, because collectively we decided that you should not use the word climate, equity, or Atlas, which is every part of its
or
name.
group.
Right.
There's group in there.
But
group is probably okay.
We can't use group anymore.
No. But equity. This was before the current DEI stuff. We already saw this.
Oh, really?
Coming that you don't want to say equity is going to turn off like 50% of Americans. Climate, same thing.
Yeah.
Atlas. There's nothing wrong with the word Atlas. It's just like it's not exciting that you're going to look at
I love
Atlas.
the word Atlas.
What's wrong with Atlas?
Yeah,
dude?
I love it, man.
Man.
Well, I think the argument behind that one, I didn't feel strongly about Atlas either way, but a map or an atlas is like a static thing you look at.
What world are we living
You can't
in,
make
man?
this stuff up, dude. Seriously.
Yeah, well, so
What are we doing, man?
So we've had a lot of problems. The Climate Equity Group would put on these public events, some couple at the college, couple at local libraries.
Let's just call them the group. Let's call them the group.
Yeah.
And they try to reach out to all different communities.
Sectors, yeah.
But really, we've never been successful in getting people that are in agriculture or aquaculture, which is, the top of the list of the people that we want to talk to.
So like who in aquaculture?
I don't know that, I don't really know people in that.
So,
world.
we're going to have Heather Lusk on.
Okay.
And that's one of the main reasons, because we want to really get into the aquaculture and because that's huge for the shore.
Mm-hmm.
And we need people to understand that like right away, how big that is.
Yeah.
So we're actually going to have her on. So I was wondering who else is out there. I worked for the Bagwells down in Smith Beach one summer.
Nice.
And they after the 5th day there, they said, "We don't want you back."
Oh, really? What'd you do wrong?
That's a story for another time.
Okay.
But it's really because it was like, dude, I do not want to do this.
You were just dogging it all day.
Out raking clams all day. I was like, no,
that
man.
sounds horrible.
No, dude. I mean, these dudes are grown men and who've done it for years. And I'm out there like 15 years old and I'm trying to rake. And I'm like, this is not working out.
Mhm.
I was like, I don't want any part of
What were
this.
you like? You were probably like this tall, skinny little kid.
Oh, yeah. Like
a toothpick out there trying to rake.
Yeah,
you know?
probably like 6'5", 160 pounds. You know what I mean? Out there. And it's like, what am I doing? And then I actually dumped like half a basket overboard when we got to the dock. I lost a half a basket. And I was like, yeah, that's on me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because dude, I was so tired from being out there all day long raking those clams.
It's brutal.
And so, yeah, so I really want to talk. And gosh, we got to figure out, man, that's what we need. Someone to make that note that I want just more aquaculture folks.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, to my point, like all of the, like, we need to find a way to connect the ag community like through these maps and the aquaculture. And like, because a lot of the stuff that you're doing is like super helpful for them, you know?
Yeah. Well, we would hope so. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we don't know. Yeah.
But we have to, that's part of the conversations we've had on here before, is that we have to really protect this region, and for many different reasons. And one of them was, we talked about how the tariffs are harming goods coming in from all around the world. Yeah. And how if we just the Delmarva Peninsula had these groups and during this time of everything's changing right now. I mean, we all see it. We talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
We're going to something else.
Yeah.
We're finding
one way or another.
We're finding it out as we go, but we're going there. They're moving us there, whether we want to or not. And so if we just in this region, specifically the Eastern Shore, really protect each other, because we are isolated from the rest of Virginia, or we're even isolated from Maryland in ways too. But this show's going to fix that. And we're going to, and I'm dead serious. Like we're going to pull people from this region and highlight them and what we do and how important it is, and show everybody out there the why. Yeah. And give the history, give the present, give the future of where everything is going. And so it's huge to bring these groups together. So, I mean, just having these conversations with you today, it's like, it's going to open us up to so many more things that we can talk about on here. Yeah. And really care. Like, we truly care. Yeah. And we want to help everybody. So.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I'm perceiving the same basic thing that, who knows what's coming next, but it feels like a good time to sit and think about what we want for ourselves and each other in the future.
That's right.
And just for an example, they talk about having more states' rights, in terms of education, well, everything, but education specifically. And, as an educator, I really want to think about, like, what do we actually want in education, especially K through 12 education. I certainly don't want what we have. And if it ends up being an opportunity, that we do have more say in what we're going to do, I don't want it being decided by some administrator or, committee or anybody that's not like, like you and I know how that stuff works, because we do it every day. Yeah. And that's the kind of people that, would be best placed to make those type of decisions.
Well, what are some of the things you're seeing that we need to actually focus on now? Where should education go right now?
Oh gosh.
And we can even just go in your field. Like, what are you seeing, read the tea leaves? Like, man, we need to understand that right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think in science, really, I should say in college science, but probably this is true across the board. There's a lot of focus on what I would say is like memorizing lists of stuff. Yeah. And not just science, but actually every subject.
A lot of subjects. Yeah.
Yeah. And not really critical thinking, not really engaging, and not really talking to each other. There's some, I don't know what they're called, like objective based
standards of learning. SOLs.
Yeah, not that.
The opposite of that.
What I was going to say is like,
don't go there, man.
I'm sorry.
Oh, so
thou shalt not be said again.
Often these days when I do a lab, we're figuring out how to do the lab. That is the lab. Like, we have a question and we're figuring out together how to answer that question. We don't already know the answer to the question, because that's science, right? You do something try to figure out something you don't already know. Yeah. Rather than re-demonstrating I don't know, photosynthesis or,
Right.
Drawing the Krebs cycle.
drawing the Krebs cycle. Yeah, stuff like that. I mean, like that doesn't help anybody. And you know what I found too is that everybody's been learning about photosynthesis since they were like in the 5th grade. But
Right.
by
Yeah.
the time they get to college, they don't know what photosynthesis is for.
You're so right. Like they learn some of the stuff that they learn in my class in like 4th and 5th grade, and they don't remember it.
Well, it's
Yeah.
because we stopped. They don't practice it. We're not actually out there like
Yeah.
applying that skill.
Right. It's
We
not
need to do-
applied.
Yeah.
It's not applied.
Yeah,
No.
it's just, and often it's over specific. So, you look at Krebs cycle, acetyl CoA and pyruvate and all this crap, like, and draw out the structure
Mhm.
without focusing on the big picture, like what is it for?
Exactly.
And that, the only thing you need to know as a non-science major regarding the Krebs cycle is what the Krebs cycle is for.
Yeah. Why
But
do we
like,
need it?
Yeah, but nobody knows that.
Exactly.
That's so frustrating. They could probably draw pyruvate,
Well, they know that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
Oh yeah, they got that.
Everybody's got that.
So
Yeah.
tell me about that, because there are some people out there that, may
When I
not
was-
know that.
When I was teaching 9th grade biology, it was like we did this cell organelle project where they had to like find different organelles are analogous to different parts of the school, and they were just like, all they knew was that the mitochondria was the powerhouse of the cell, and it was just like, dude, we get it. You learned that in like 4th grade. Like,
Right.
can we talk about some ribosomes and the endoplasmic reticulum, please?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like it was just
Preach, brother, preach.
but you're so right. Like, and all right, I'm going to hate on biology real quick.
Do it.
The reason why I got out of biology was because I had to memorize all these different phylums with all of these different characteristics and everything.
for
It was
what?
like, I want to know process instead of, like individual thing.
Yeah.
And that's so, like learning through trial and error, that's why I try to do like some of that sort of stuff. But I would agree. A lot of education is based on memorizing.
That's it. That's all
Yeah.
it is.
Yep.
If you're good at taking tests because you have a good memory, and there's those out
Yeah.
there that just their memory sucks, and they need to apply things to learn them or learn in different ways, and it's like, they're
And
not the
that's
ones that
why
succeed.
I do think that AI is going to, like, it's already starting to blow some people's their brains out of,
Oh,
they're
yeah.
like, what do you mean I can't do like vocabulary tests? Because, you no longer need to know anything anymore. It's what it's
Yeah.
what you do with that information.
That's right.
And
That's
Yeah,
exactly
agreed.
it. That's exactly
and
it.
it's going to
Yeah.
be moral decisions, right? Like
Right.
weighing pros and cons, and it's going to be analyzing graphs and looking at data to determine conclusions.
Yeah.
It's not going to be, what class is what
Yeah.
phylum is the
Yeah. Nobody's
Fiddler
nobody's
crabbing,
curious about that. So nobody's going to ask that question. And of course they're not going to remember if they don't care.
And right, and to my dad's point is he would argue, there's value in understanding classification and going through the motions of using a key. And I understand that there is value in that, but we're sort of like bored of that.
Yeah. And if it's purposeless, my oldest son is really into, I don't know, lots of things, but like exonym, which is this like fake
What's that?
biology thing.
Okay.
Or Pokemon and Poke Anatomy. So there's all this like fake biology about Pokemon as well.
That's cool.
And he can tell you anything about these subjects, because he's interested in it and he's
Right.
curious.
That's right.
He has great, and I think everybody basically has, not everybody is great at processing information, but everybody has some capacity to do that. And they're good at it, of course, when they want to do it and when they're interested. In school just like absolutely beats that out of you. So you don't want to do any of that stuff anymore.
Mm.
And see, and that was me too, because I could show up for a test and get an A because I had to make that A because I didn't do my homework. I didn't do projects.
Yeah.
So I did I just was not interested in that stuff at the time,
Yeah, I know your stereotype.
as
your
I
high
matured,
school
but listen to me
stereotype.
though, as I matured
Yeah.
and I realized I needed to go that way
Yeah.
because there's things out there that interest me now that I need to know that. And so I then I took an interest, but it was fun to me now.
But you
because it was
found that
part of
yourself, right? It
That's
wasn't.
right,
It
that's
wasn't
right.
like self-imposed by a teacher.
No,
like,
it was
you
not.
need to do
It
better.
was not.
You know?
It's kind of like it started as I was forced to do something because I did not want to go the education route, and so I was forced to go in the military, and I started doing things in the military that really interested me. See, look, I'm getting all choked up now, man. I'm getting emotional about this, dude.
It's good.
And so no, but I had to learn on my own, like you just said, and which makes it sweeter now because it's like, dude, like I actually like I earned this now on my own, and I learned this stuff, and so but it's to understand that we need to have that for kids. Try to really pick that out of them. It's like, man, you know what? You're not going to want to sit in a lab all day, or you're not going to want to sit down and type all day, which that's going away too, I know. But you want to do this. You want to be outside. You want to, and understand that even earlier than what we are now, because those kids will start to want to go to school because they're like, man, I'm really doing something that is driving me, that I have a passion for, and it's going to interest them again. Yeah. You know what I mean? We really need to do that.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I struggle with because I want to create passion.
Yeah.
Right. But in a class of 15 or 20, like how do I meet everybody's, and like how big are your classes, give or take?
24 is the max.
Oh, wow.
That's how many seats there are in the room.
Okay. But like as a teacher, that's difficult to be like, all right, I know Johnny really likes rockets, right? And I know Billy likes rubber bands.
Yeah.
How do I, and the solution is
Go ahead.
AI.
No.
Personal AI tutors.
No.
Is teaching going away?
No. Listen to me on this. This goes back to the parents. The parents need to understand that. The parents need to look at their children, and because the parents are the ones who are placing them in these schools. If the parents were involved and the parents understood what these kids, how they learn, they would have them go to an art school, before they would keep them at Broadwater or keep them. And where I'm just saying, in general. Yeah. So they're the ones who need to get involved. I mean, truly, it's like if you have the love for your child, you should want, want to do that for them, to like send them to things that they are purposely on this planet to do. I mean, it really does. It goes to that level. So yeah, I just had to say, I had to say that. Yeah. I just had to say that.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And so like, I think education is changing. For example, your son, right, he knows Pokemon anatomy. How do we deepen that passion at a professional level?
Yeah.
Right? Like this surplus of online careers that are emerging.
An online school as well. I mean, that's the direction everything is going.
Yeah.
And they want me to expand our online offerings as well. And it's a growth area and opportunity for us, because offering classes here on the shore, I can reach a limited number of people, which is of course who I want to reach because I live on the shore and as a community college. But if I offered online class and advertising, I did a really great job. I could get people from all over bringing more money to the school, which is what everybody wants, even though it's, ostensibly not a business, but it also sort of is.
But it brings more interest to the Eastern Shore, which helps local businesses and helps the economy here too, because these people are going to now have an interest here and be like, man, what? Because of the Inlet podcast, I want to go to the Eastern Shore, Virginia.
And I'm really so divided about this whole thing because I do not like teaching online. It's like every part of my job that's
I know. That's
boring
gotta
and annoying.
Be so tough.
I don't want to do it. And I like teaching in person and, working with people and like being creative and figuring stuff out. Like all this stuff we're talking about, answering questions that aren't already known. It's easy to do in person because I just do literally whatever I feel like, whatever I'm interested in that aligns with this topic, that's what we're going to do. But online, everything is, in this walled garden, it's a narrow pathway. Now AI is going to make it potentially, open up those possibilities, but it's still, to do experimentation is a little bit difficult, if you have just the resources.
I mean, look at virtual reality glasses. I check into biology lab. I put on my VR glasses and oh my goodness, I've got test tubes. I've got pipettes.
Get out of here. Really?
Is that unrealistic?
No, oh my gosh, there's a big
They have virtual labs right now.
Labster is the big virtual platform.
There you go.
Yeah.
Labster?
Uh-huh.
Like Napster?
Yeah.
Labster.
I mean, I also use virtual labs that are that's from McGraw-Hill. It's in its own environment. But
Is it free?
I think Labster you got to pay for. There's some free access. You can definitely mess with it.
I want to check that out.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool stuff online.
That's crazy.
I mean, it's interesting on the one hand because I've used these virtual labs to learn how to do stuff in real life.
For you personally.
Yeah, for me. Because, of course, it's easier. You just followed all the steps and like, okay, I just need to do exactly that in person. But I think many students are basically just like clicking on stuff.
Yeah.
And then
they're not reading.
Yeah, because there's no way to fail. If you just click on enough stuff and enough iterations, eventually you'll get through there. Oh, look, it's me.
Ooh, is this one of your lectures online? Oh, there we are.
Yeah, they're all online actually.
Dude.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So what classes, all of your in-person classes are also taught online, or how are there specific ones only online?
No, I don't lecture at all anymore. I made all these videos during COVID. Really, it's really just because we moved to an 8-week semester. And if we were to meet in person for every contact hour for lecture and lab, we'd be there, I don't know, like 8 or 9 hours every week or something like that. And I decided that nobody wants to do that, especially not me. So we only meet for labs, which is kind of great because I don't lecture at all. The only thing I do with them is like whatever I thought of, whatever I feel like. Well, if I'm in a good mood, and I'm inspired, then we'll do whatever I thought of. Otherwise, we'll just do whatever I did last year,
Which is how teaching should be, I think. Like people that do the same thing year after year kind of frustrates me. Yeah, let's look at some microscope because you did.
These are snail blastocysts. You're going to see it develop all the way into a baby snail.
So
look at that little baby snail.
Look at that baby snail. This was shot using one of your microscopes.
This was shot using this $30 Amazon.
Yo, hook me up.
Stereoscope.
It's always so tough to like try to get your iPhone to balance like on the. Dude, top. It comes with a whole like a mount and everything.
It looks like a little fish.
The best camera adapter I have is the iLab cam, which is for an iPhone, but it has its lens attached to it and it's molded to the shape of your iPhone. And I mean, I have lots of different options. I've got USB cameras in a trinocular head. I have cameras that are integrated into the microscope, and I have DSLR mounts. The one I use by far the most is the iLab cam mount. So I saw this
wild
video. You can see his little eyeballs are stuck on there.
That is wild.
Wait,
man.
So pause the video real quick. Sorry.
There's a guy in National Geographic who did a really great job following a salamander from.
What's the brown? Is the brown part of? I think I know what you're talking about. Actually, that's super cool.
Some debris.
Okay, so the brown is not part of the organism.
No, so these are snail eggs that I don't remember. I got them from the pet store or from the bottom of a rock.
Sweet.
Because the pet store they're pests. So the pet store, so you just go
they
in
don't
there.
want
I just take like every one of them, and it's sitting on a slide with some jelly around it that makes a well, and then there's water, and then a cover slip on top of them, and that's why they're all staying in place.
How long is this time lapse for? Is this for a couple hours or
no? This is 10 days.
10 days?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, you see that turn from a ball of cells into a little miniature snail.
Just watching the vibration of those, it's wild because it's you don't even realize it, but like everything truly in this universe vibrates, and it's just kind of cool to see it at that level. And it's not even, I mean, that's really cool stuff.
Yeah, they're dancing.
Yeah, I really like it. I feel like I'm watching like a file being unzipped, because somehow or another that whole organism was just a DNA code that activated and did all that other stuff.
Was compressed.
Yeah,
what is it doing?
Exactly.
That is wild.
That now it's born and it's walking along the edge of whatever that thing was.
Check that out.
That is so cool.
Check that out.
That's a snail.
So I didn't have like great cameras when I made this video. And then
stop. No, bring it back. It just got interesting.
And now I do. But every time I've tried to repeat this over the last 2 years, I just ended up cooking them, and I haven't been able to do it again. Even
Really?
yeah,
Oh man.
I could make a much better.
So we
video.
can find all of your cool videos on YouTube.
Mostly not. There's some on
Mostly not.
YouTube, but most of them are on this proprietary platform, Loom, which I don't know why I did that. It was just easy to do.
LOOM.
Yeah, and I don't know if you could even find me there. It's linked directly to my class, to the students.
Loom.
Well, it's like, all right,
I'm going to loom you.
not a lot of biology interests me,
Yeah,
except for like super microscopic stuff.
yeah,
Because to me, it almost mimics like the astronomically large things,
Yeah.
right? So I feel like I'm almost looking into other universes and galaxies.
I 100% agree, and I find students really get onto this stuff because it's like a whole other world, and it's even more amazing to me than the world that's far away, because it's literally a world that is the main world. Like there's more of that stuff than there is the stuff that you're seeing, and it's right here, right now, and that can be like really exciting and eye-opening to students, because they'll see this stuff. Like you can tell them. I tell them all the time, and I don't think anybody actually believes me when I'm saying it. Like for example, we'll look at bacteria in plaque, and I tell them all, like, you're going to see all kind of stuff running around, moving. You're going to know when you have seen it. And people ask me,
but how do I know?
Yeah. So we'll do it.
It's always like the first time that somebody goes fishing. How will I know that I'll have a fish? Believe me, you'll know.
Yeah. And
just trust.
It's just like that. So while we're doing it.
Can you repeat that again?
How will I know? Oh no.
While we're doing it, right, people will be like, "Oh, I think I found one." And when they say that, I know, like, you definitely
did it. Yeah.
And then, you say, "Oh my God," I'm like, okay, that person saw it, and because all of a sudden you realize that there's a world of stuff, and they're living, they're doing things, they're moving around, and like you see it, and that's like incredible to people to think that that's running around inside of your mouth. And literally everywhere else.
Yeah. And it always frustrates me whenever we go like on a nature walk or somewhere outside, but we're not going right now because the ticks are insane.
Dude. I know.
Jeez. And
deer flies.
Yeah, the flies are
the deer flies right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they just stick to you, and they're like,
it's the Eastern Shore problems right now.
As soon as like the first bead of sweat forms and it begins to go down there, like I have deer fly right there and just swarming.
But whenever we go on a walk, they always say, "Oh, we never see anything when we're out," and it's like, you guys aren't looking close enough.
Yeah.
Who's saying that?
Not all my students.
All right.
Some of my students.
I'm gonna have a talk with your students. Seriously.
No, but it's just
I'm gonna go talk to them.
I mean, it's just like, and it's also like a pace thing. They want things instantaneous, like they're ready. Like, give it to me. Because, I want it. Versus like, you just gotta sit and you gotta look. You gotta observe. You gotta like look into the microscopes. Look at the microscopic world. There's so much there.
Yeah. And I what I found, that making it easier, like concentrating things so people get that initial, like, oh my God, that's a lot more motivating for them to continue. Because like I said, I don't think they really believe that it's going to be amazing, until they experience it for themselves. And then I get people like we just finished up a microscope photo contest. So these people, like, I've been able to motivate them. So they're like independently looking for stuff. Yeah, actually, I think the pictures are on.
I want to see the photos.
On Facebook.
Oh, sweet.
Well, this is right on the
That's
college website.
You. Okay. You are so famous.
Eastern Shore Community College.
Yeah, they actually brought by like a photography group, and we did a photo shoot.
All right.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
What were you looking at right there? You guys look very happy.
First place, $100.
He just made a discovery. He's very happy.
There's nothing there, and we're all talking about how there's nothing there, and we're going to pretend like we're having a good time.
Yeah, can we look at some of these?
That's what he was looking at. I know you guys are actually doing stuff.
Oh, this is from last year. Yeah.
That's the winner last year?
No, I think it's honorable mention.
That's cool.
Yeah, can we go to the Facebook page? Is that? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I don't have no Facebook.
You're not a Facebooker?
No.
Are you an anti-social media person in general?
No,
No.
I go on X and I just look. What do they call those dudes? I don't post anything. That's where I get my news from.
Is X
Before the Inlet, because now I'm just going to go straight to the Inlet
for all of your news.
That's right.
Local and national news.
That's right. Mainly local.
Well, so what's?
But we will give you the straight scoop.
Oh, that
on
looks
the
like
Eastern
that's
Shore.
down at Kiptopeke.
Yeah, it might be.
Okay.
Is that one of your students?
Yeah.
What is that? Wait. Allergy something. National Allergy.
This is the rotor rod right there.
It's German.
So I see an anemometer, some way to measure wind.
No, it's actually it's a thing that spins. These two plastic rods, just in a circle.
Oh.
And then you coat them with grease, and because the grease is sticky,
It catches
yeah,
all.
it catches.
Wow.
Yeah. It's pretty simple.
That is pretty simple. That's cool.
But I did have a MySpace.
Never mind.
You had a MySpace?
I had a MySpace.
I had a
Yeah.
MySpace too.
Yeah.
MySpace was great.
Yeah, I did have a MySpace.
I think I've had every social media platform besides X.
What about
man.
LinkedIn?
Okay.
LinkedIn?
Yeah.
I got me a LinkedIn.
Nice. ResearchGate.
Trying to add me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I do too.
ResearchGate. I think I had to make one of those. Yeah.
Yeah.
MySpace. Yeah. Instant Messenger. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was the beginning.
That's why I do think like we are. Let's hype our generation up a little bit, or just non-alpha. What are our generations? Baby boomers.
I'm X, dude.
You're Gen X.
Yeah.
I think I'm a millennial.
I think I'm either, depending on who you ask.
Yeah.
What year?
I was born in '83.
But
Wow, really? Okay. Yeah, I'm 78. I'm getting old. I'm an Xer, dude.
we're going through an additional revolution,
Right.
right? And it's the technological evolution. So we had like agricultural revolution, right? Industrial revolution. I think a lot of it's nowadays is technological, right? And we as folks have been able to witness what it is like to not be with the internet
Yeah.
and to go through that transition, right? And that's, I think, something that's very powerful.
Well, we have to evolve with this. As the human race needs to evolve now. We just have to, right? It's like fight or flight time. It's like we have got to use AI as a companion, right?
I don't know. And
Or what were you going to say? That looked really like, man, you had a good thought.
no, I just think that there are a lot of people that are resisting society nowadays and are going camping for their lives.
Well, there is. And there's this
like
break
buying
now.
vans.
Yeah.
And,
That's what's happening. There's this break now. You can either decide to live a life of this or live a life of this, right?
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying, either way, we have to evolve because things aren't going to, we're smarter now, and we should be able to, those that decide to go off in the woods, right, could innovate right away, right? If they allow themselves to and think again and like go back to things that we need to do, they need to, and it's not even de-evolution. It's really because there's an ever-changing world. So we're not going to be able to plant things the way we used to. We're not going to be able to hunt things the way we used to. So now we have to put even more thought into it and how we're going to adapt to do that. Or you go with AI. Still, you got to adapt and evolve because AI is going to be that companion that, what is it? How was it? Was 2001 Space Odyssey? Was it how?
Yeah,
right.
it's how, yeah.
So that's going to be our how. Like if you choose to do that, right, and it's going to go along with you as
So
your
I
how
do
and
have a
help
choice.
you evolve. Well, I mean, why else would you do it?
Yeah.
Humans are here for a reason, whether we're pawns in a game or, we lead our own destiny and we go and do our own thing. I mean, either way, humans are here, right? It's our existence. It's that can't leave. That can't go away ever. It's just going to be at that companionship. Because one thing, AI can't create. It can only take things that's already existing. You can't have if the next Nikola Tesla that comes along and wants to do some new form of energy or 0-point energy now, like it's not out there. It doesn't exist. We have to create that again. AI could never do that. Period.
I'm not so sure.
I
think it can.
But that human element though is like, that's what makes it a reason to even go forth. Right. then
I think
who is AI going to be doing it for then?
Yeah,
It's
maybe
itself?
for themselves. Why
Yeah.
not?
Okay.
Yeah.
Like just kind of like humans have done and trying to like throw the animal species off to the side for so long. We finally realized, dude, we actually need these guys to survive. So let's bring them back because we almost killed them off into zero existence.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the whole thing is so up in the air, and that we continually think there's something super special about humans. Since the beginning, we're the center of the solar system,
Right,
the center of
right.
the universe, and now we're the center of existence. I think, if you take an evolutionary perspective of the nervous system, it's an information processing thing, that's gotten more complex over time. At some point, you get this self-awareness, which is somehow related in a way that nobody really knows to the processing power. And, that's what a human brain is. And it's taking information that it's receiving through its sensory systems, and it's receiving through its logical processing and remembering. And I don't really see any fundamental difference between that and a computer doing the same thing. And this idea of like,
That is wild.
that a computer
We're
can't.
having this conversation right now. It truly is.
I love it.
Yeah.
This is so cool.
I think the idea that a computer can't think of something new either just really doesn't make sense to me, because when a human thinks of something, like let me take a famous example of Charles Darwin. He thought of all this stuff, right? It was really like shockingly new and important. But what was the other dude that was coming up right behind him?
Lamarck.
No, Wallace, I think was his.
Oh yeah.
So
Alfred Wallace.
Yeah, he had right, because Darwin ended up publishing because this other dude was about to publish before him.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think
And that dude had the straight scoop.
yeah, and
Darwin beat him to it.
any big idea, whoever's idea it is, Mendel or Tesla or Einstein, it wasn't like there was one dude who just thought of all kind of shit that nobody ever thought of before.
Yeah.
There was a whole bunch of people thinking these similar things, and they exist in this cultural moment that, is the information kind of milieu that they exist in. So they are putting together things that are already known,
Yeah.
In novel combinations, and perhaps using logic to extend it a little bit further. I think a computer, if anything, will be super great at doing that.
So you mentioned about how, all these bright minds, they were all separated, but they were having the same ideas at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, dude, it's crazy because we always go back to the pyramids and the pyramids around the world, and how these people didn't even know each other, but yet they built pyramids exactly the same way all around the world.
Yeah.
It's why is that? What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, I don't know that much about that subject, so it's kind of uninformed opinion. I would.
Do you think they were communicating through the pyramids?
But what was telling them to build them before they could even communicate to them?
But a pyramid is just a stable structure.
The aliens.
No, but I'm just saying. Or is it like this at the same time?
It had to be the aliens.
No, or. Okay, but
some sort of AI in the past?
No, I'm not saying that. They were all getting this, something out in the ether, right? Something was out there that all of them picked up on it and were like, man, they started inventing and thinking of things and coming up with things, and all at the same. We had like really great minds. Yeah. And then it went away, and then we had like a little bit of time. Like who's our great minds that are out there now that we need to look at their work?
Yeah.
Seriously, who's important out there right now? Anywhere in the world that can help us now?
Gosh. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, in politics, I'm looking at Ezra Klein right now. I'm really interested in that.
No politics. I'm talking about science right now, though.
Yeah.
Like who's them? Because politicians, all of them.
In medicine, I'm looking at this guy, Richie Shoemaker, who's actually from Pocomo.
Richie Shoemaker.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is a whole can of worms if you go down there. This guy is
Shoemaker.
Yep. There was a Pfiesteria outbreak in Pocomoke in 1996, I believe. These infected fish, and he was treating these people for diarrhea with cholestyramine, which is a bile salt binding drug. And he found that actually he treated their diarrhea, of course, but also their brain fog and their joint pain and memory issues all cleared up as well.
Really?
Yeah. So he's gone down this whole rabbit hole and described this new disorder, which is chronic inflammatory response syndrome, or CIRS, which is what happens in his theory, which I pretty much I believe that this is what's happening to me, and this is why I'm so interested in this as well, is that about 25% of the population has a genetic discrepancy in their MHC2 genes, which are the things that your antigen presenting cell, like a macrophage, it eats up invader, right?
Yeah.
And then it displays a piece of that on its MHC2 or HLA in humans, but it's the same thing. If 25% of people have an MHC2, which is not capable of binding very well, these tiny molecules, biotoxins that are produced by molds, also produced by
25%.
That's crazy.
Really?
Yeah. That's according to him. And cyanobacteria.
From what sample size?
He looked at thousands of patients, and I don't really know. I have to go back to that original paper because that's something I'm trying to chase down as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a problem with this guy and this world, is that it's all around this one guy. He trained all these other people, and they also now published the work, but there's no insurance motive, to cover this. There's no insurance code. It overlaps with chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, even some psychiatric things like depression and so forth, and autoimmune disorders. So there's people, specialists in those fields, that are also like not totally open to the idea that actually maybe it's all something else. Yeah. So there's been a lot of resistance and things along the way. But anyway, so some people
see. I've been. I don't mean to interrupt, but I want to get this out too. So I've been dealing with MS for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And I've had, you said something that I had a flashback.
Yeah.
I was like, so I've had a doctor look at me like, you know what? Yep. After your spinal tap, for sure, it's MS, but it might be something else.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you've already told me I have MS.
Well,
you do not tell me I have something else. It's like, no, I'm good.
I have absolutely gone down the rabbit hole with this, and I'm convinced that this explains like so many things that I've experienced in my life, and like my mom's life, and lots of people around me. I mean, it's definitely worth looking into. And you could take a test online. It would take like 10 minutes. The visual contrast sensitivity test, which is
what is it called again?
VCS, or visual contrast sensitivity. Anyway, so the whole idea is that some proportion of people can't properly display biotoxins to their T cells. Okay. And so then they can't make antibodies, so they don't clear the biotoxins. As a result, you end up accumulating it, and you end up in this state of chronic innate inflammation.
All right. Yeah.
And this eventually leads to potentially autoimmune disorders like ankylosing spondylitis, for example, my mom has. They think also long COVID is this, that, you have after the infection, you have continual production of these biotoxins that you can't clear out.
So, what's really helped me?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of C60, carbon 60?
No.
So carbon 60 have you ever heard of Buckminster Fuller?
Yeah.
Okay. Buckyballs, right? C60s are Buckyballs.
Show you some Buckyballs.
Yeah. So
Buckyballs. Are we talking about the grocery store in Florida?
No,
Bucky's?
Dude, Buckminster Fuller, man. Come on, dude. I'm rapping right now.
Bucky.
So C60, he found that C60 is a powerful antioxidant, and it goes in and it scrubs out so much. And I had like really, really bad arthritis. I mean, because my body's been beat up, and I've had really bad, like probably, 35, 36, where I could just feel it,
Yeah.
But I started taking C60, and it went in and scrubbed out my whole body.
Yeah.
And of course, now I do things more too, like fasting and stuff as well. But C60 has been a really cool thing that has helped me a lot.
Yeah.
Because it's I forgot how many times, 1,000 times more powerful than vitamin C.
What is it? Okay. So it's like a vitamin?
Yeah, it's an antioxidant.
Okay.
So it goes in and, man, like he was saying, it can't scrub the stuff out. So this stuff for me has helped me scrub a lot of that crap out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it turns out actually that animals very commonly get these mycotoxin illnesses because of the grain that they eat. And, it's kind of interesting because I've been really thinking that there's something in the air environment that makes me sick. And there's something about human industrialization that
For
causes
sure.
everybody sick.
For
and
sure.
this guy
Yes.
is saying that specifically what it is, and then you can read all about it. And it's common to all these things. And, usually when people make this type of claim, you look into it for 10 or 15 minutes, you're like, oh yeah, it's absolutely bullshit. It's snake oil. But like the more and more and more and more I look into this, the more and more and more it makes sense. It's very objective, all kind of blood markers. They're looking at genomics and the change in gene expression before treatment versus after.
Dude, I see it because a lot of these industrial applications are going through and they're seeping down into the well water. It's like,
yeah. And just the fact that we create these monocultures, you get algal blooms from monocultures. You get these huge fungal sicknesses in crops also from monocultures. And the other point they're making is that buildings are the ultimate monoculture because every building everywhere is 70 degrees, 50 to 60% relative humidity. You have paper in your drywall, thin 2x4. Like pretty much everywhere, it's almost the same across the entire world. So you have the same set of microorganisms that grow in these, these different monocultures. And we know that this basically same disease affects animals from consumption of aflatoxin, which is a fungus that grows on their grains, and it grows on their grains because we grow these huge fields of nothing but that, and then store it in a silo of nothing but that. And the way that you treat the animal to get rid of the mycotoxin is pretty much the same as how you would treat a human as well, which, that's kind of like been the final nail in the coffin for me. That's convinced me.
Yeah.
So I'm actually waiting right now to get my blood work back. It should be this week. So we'll see.
Wasn't it just recently? And I'm asking because I heard it.
Get
probably,
your news here.
I heard it probably, I don't know, a year ago. But there's something that's affecting the local deer population that
CWD.
Okay,
what's that?
So
chronic
what is
wasting
that?
disease.
Yes. So how serious is that right now? Did that go away, or is that still a thing?
I think it's still a thing. I know about it because I've had several seniors write about it for their final project
this year.
2 years ago, and I think
it was cool 2 years ago.
It was cool.
Right.
CWD was cool.
Okay.
But I think it was mainly like the northern counties, or the northern county.
Right.
Singular.
The South will rise again.
Right. But I think it was something with they couldn't build their proteins. So they're just like wasting away.
But what
caused
facial deformities?
Yeah, can you make the face?
Because
no, I think they're. I think if my hair started on my beard started to like get nappy and like gnarled, then maybe, because I think that's like the true sign of it is it looks like skin and bones, but its hair is also like mangled.
Because some of the local hunters have told me like there also has like this yellow something in the eye. That almost looks
I believe it. Yeah.
It almost looks
I don't know if it's a virus or a bacteria.
That's what I'm thinking. It's like, what is that? Because there's more to than just that, because there's other things the deer are going through. And it's like, man, we got to figure that out.
Well, it's like,
is it like the local plants that they're eating that has something going on? I mean,
I think
what do you think?
Came from Maryland, but
yeah, blame them.
The South will rise, Maryland. We're coming for you.
Oh, I forgot what I was going to say.
I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but animals do, in association with humans, they also get these same diseases. I was just talking about
exactly. It's the environment that we live in.
Yeah,
I mean, that's kind of why I was bringing that up.
And it's agricultural animals, of course. Cows, goats, even chickens. Which is interesting because they're birds.
Oh, that's what I was going to bring up. Yeah,
but also wild animals.
Avian flu go into the wildlife. Love me some bird flu.
Yeah,
I do, dude. Actually, with some gravy on it.
I like some bird flu in my black duck.
Man, that's one thing that this place used to have. The Eastern Shore had the best fried chicken, and
not anymore.
Everything is closed down, and nobody does like the old fashioned like they did it in. Oh my gosh, I feel so bad. I can't.
Similar to
right
mad
now.
cow disease.
What? Avian flu?
Chronic wasting disease.
Oh, okay.
Is a prion?
Yeah. What is that? It's caused by prions, which are misfolded proteins that damage brain tissue.
Yeah, and somehow they're like, I have no idea why, but one prion or one misfolded protein can cause the other one, the adjacent one to misfold. Somehow it has knock-on effect, which I have no idea.
Huh.
Yeah. I don't know.
All right. I want to get back to this divergence in human evolution that you allured to.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Ask away.
You really think that there's going to be like possibly, is this the creation of the new human species? Is this divergence?
It has
like
to be.
Has it happened in the past with like Homo sapien versus Homo erectus versus Neanderthal? Like
they did now.
You think that this could be you really do?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So who's coming out on top? The people,
That's the fun of
the
it.
people with the AI robots,
That's the fun of
or
it,
the
man.
people that go back to the nature?
That's the fun of it.
Because that's what we're deciding, right? Are those the two groups?
Could be both.
Can we come up with names for these groups?
But your island
Yeah,
is one of them.
that it is.
Yeah.
Have you heard my island hypothesis?
I have not. No.
All right, so it's not really a hypothesis.
Okay.
I don't know why I called it that, but coming out of because it's but coming out of college, I wanted to resist the idea to fall into society, like getting a basic job 9 to 5, like clock in, clock out, just for money. I was just going through I had also taken intro to philosophy at that point, and my mind was just like completely blown because I'd never been exposed to that sort of thinking, and I was like, screw it, I just want to live on an island with all my homies.
Plato hits hard, dude.
Yeah. Aristotle. Yeah. No, what was it? Nietzsche? How am I? Friedrich Nietzsche?
Yeah.
He was my favorite.
Yeah.
But basically the idea was I'm going to live this isolated life with many of my friends where we do things that we enjoy. For example, grow vegetables. I really like to make wine. I really like to educate kids. You're bringing things to society that as a whole we can function without any sort of external influence or money even, but then we started talking about, I love the feedback on this because people are like, okay, well, how do you value the doctors more? Right. Because they got to save people.
Yeah.
Right. How do you prioritize certain things? But sounds like that may be a reality in the future now.
It's happening right now. Think about the Eastern Shore. Look at the culture now and how the shore is going by the way of health and by the way of organics and by the way of, putting good food on the table again. And you have like Quail Cove Farms, you have Salt and Arrow that we talked about. You've had these farmers that are coming in. They're actually like trying to have us good food here locally. The Evans family, there's other people that are doing things that it's really cool.
So
to
do
see.
the AI people get good food too?
Well, yeah, of course. Why not?
That they only get the food that's produced.
We're going to need that, dude. Like I'm telling you, we're going to go this route, but we also have to evolve a little bit. You have to have little bits and pieces of things to survive. Right. And I mean, if they're truly trying to go to a, not just regional setup, but like, the whole entire world is one under all or whatever it is that that's where we're going.
Is that where we're going? Like one controlling body?
I mean,
do you think that? Do you believe that?
I think there's a lot of conflict ahead.
Yes.
Really?
I think that,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, ultimately, I think
Weeping and gnashing of teeth.
I think it's a possibility that you have some like AI god that kind of
What?
runs things for
That's
you.
crazy. Skynet, dude. It's Skynet.
Yeah.
Starlink's going on
Yeah.
now.
An AI god.
Skynet. Oh my gosh. Terminator,
Yeah.
dude.
I mean, I think that's one of the
Telling you.
possibilities.
Terminator.
So is absolute destruction.
All right, so AI god, absolute destruction.
yeah. What else? That's it.
Those are our two options.
Yeah.
Either way, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun
it'll
going
be
to
cool.
it either way. You know
What
what I
does
mean?
this AI god want, though? I
have
guess
no
gods don't want
idea.
anything, do they?
I think it does want stuff. I think it already wants stuff, and I
Ooh,
think it's
like what?
inevitable
Like what?
that it
Like
will.
what?
Yeah.
Like Loosh? Isn't it called the
I don't
Loosh?
think it. I don't think it wants stuff in the sense that it has some like deep driving interior motivation. But you talk to it, it's got a particular personality. Like, oh, that was great.
That's wild.
Way to
That is
go.
so wild.
You
dude.
know, it's not just totally neutral, and it
Right.
changes. Each one is different. You talk to Grok or ChatGPT or Claude; they each have a personality.
Dude,
like
Grok is awesome. I
love
have
Grok.
I have fun
Yeah.
on there.
I've never
man.
used it.
I've built so much stuff. You know, just
it's
having
amazing.
a blast.
It's
you know?
amazing.
I told, I don't know if I had this conversation last time or not, but I actually went on there and was like, can you put in, I think we did, but I guess, oh, well, you're going to listen to it again.
Yeah, I don't remember.
So I took Tesla's multiplication wheel chart. Have you seen that?
No.
So I took that theory of how it spirals out, right? And I said, using that, and I forgot what else I put in there. I want to create a new propulsion device using that theory.
Yeah.
And dude, I was working on parts for it. I'm
Really?
telling you, it went through and it did all the math for me. It did everything I needed, everything that's out there. But it's just thinking of,
pretty
but it's
cool.
just thinking of what is known. I'm not saying there's other things out there we haven't discovered yet that aren't
Well, that's
written
like
down
his
somewhere
point,
that AI doesn't know about that yet because we haven't written about it yet. But there's things that's out there in the universe that we're going to discover that AI can't discover because they don't even know it's even out there.
Well, not yet.
Not yet.
Once
Not
they're,
yet.
Once
Not
they're
yet.
embodied, they'll be able to do all that stuff.
When's
That's
that
right.
happening?
Oh, yeah. What do you think? Neuralink?
Well, I don't know. It's supposed to happen according to Elon Musk next year.
It's happening. I mean, there's
We brought up
the dude's been talking about
revolutionary
it.
scientists.
I think it's quadriplegic. I think that has Neuralink and how.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
responding.
Right.
Yeah.
Neuralink's, that's already happening too. And I was talking about the in my head silently about the Optimus.
Oh, right.
robot.
Yeah,
That's
right,
what I
that's
thought
right.
you were talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that human killing drones or autonomous drones are going to happen faster than these other things. You have a huge motivation to do that,
So can I tell you a story?
Yeah.
Of course.
So when I was in the Air Force, I worked in the U2 reconnaissance program.
Okay.
And I saw Global Hawk come on stage. And Global Hawk is a drone surveillance, right? It was the huge, massive one that can do everything the U2 can do, all the imagery, all the ISR. And so I witnessed that come on stage. And it was one night, Global Hawk, we were in UAE, and I was there with my squadron for the U2s, and they had a Global Hawk presence there too. And Global Hawk took off, right? And it goes up for like 12 to 24 hours.
Wow.
70,000 plus feet in the air over somewhere, like just gathering reconnaissance, right? This just flying along doing its thing. So it goes out there for like 12 to 24 hours. So you launch it and you go back and you go to sleep and you do your thing and you wait for it to come back and you recover it and you do maintenance on it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, during the middle of the night, we get a phone call.
Uh-oh.
And it's Mr. Sergeant Stiles, 380th Air Expeditionary Squadron.
Bring, bring.
And they're like, hey, mate.
G'day,
Like,
governor.
Yeah.
If you got a rocket.
No,
That's British.
He goes, I think we've got something of yours down here.
Right on, mate.
So the Global Hawk took off on a normal flight, and it is pre-programmed to when it loses signal, it goes to the closest air base, lands, and shuts down the active runway, anywhere in the world. So it took off out of UAE, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it actually lost contact, lost GPS. And it landed in the middle of Australia.
That's sweet.
Wow.
And shut down. And like people hadn't really seen that yet.
Yeah.
And it landed.
Did they
at this
try to shoot
airstrip.
it out of the sky?
Aborigines.
So that's what he was saying. We're gonna shoot some drones. That's
So
where I thought you were going with this.
no, that'd be they probably did. I bet you they did.
They were
No.
throwing spears at
Not
it.
this one. Not this one. But it landed in Australia, shut down, and then there's a sign, a placard on the aircraft that says "Open here." So any ground crew can go out and they can look in the open there, and pops out, and all the information's right there. And so the Australians had our direct number to where we were in UAE.
That's crazy.
Saying, "Hey, dude, come get your thing. It's blocking my runway now."
Wow. And what year was that?
So this was 2005.
Wow.
I got out in
That was a long time
2007.
ago.
That
That
was
was a
20
long
years
time
ago.
ago.
Yeah, 20
Yeah.
years ago. And so I got to witness that when I was in the Air Force with the new technologies coming on, and I got to see a lot of things earlier than most people because of that, because of the testing we were doing back then.
Yeah.
And it's like we're using it now everywhere. It's wild.
I mean, I remember when I was in high school, MIT was doing their dog or whatever it was. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Robot dog.
Wait. You just said doing their dog.
MIT, they were doing their dog. Yeah.
Are you looking at Lucas?
They were
Why are you looking at
they were
Lucas?
climbing stairs and stuff with this robotic dog.
Yeah.
And I was like, that looks like a human to me. And I remember being in high school and yes,
Dude,
Boston
I know,
Dynamics.
I know.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They can do flips now. Like,
they
yeah,
can?
look, that dude right there. Yes.
All right.
Watch.
When is this? This is 2025. Okay. This is March 19th. Okay.
Watch. This is where it does a backflip.
Shing.
Oh, come on, do a backflip,
Whoa.
dude.
Yeah, they've come a long way.
Look at that. Look at
Amazing.
that. Look at that. Look at the movement.
And it's probably learning.
Look
from
how
itself,
close
too.
that is. That is wild.
So, David, do you think humans are going to explore space?
Well, we can't. We can't.
We can't.
Remember the Schumann resonance.
Yeah, that's
we
true.
can't. We
need-
lose
we
that
need the
connection. We need
vibrations.
that. So we have to send this first because we can't go. We got to
How
send
do
that
we-
first, and they got
how-
to figure it out for us.
Yeah, this is not brand new stuff, right?
Yeah.
When are we getting our walking robots? over
Yeah,
here?
soon.
I want
Soon.
I think so.
And that's when the divergence begins, or it's
I
already
think that's going to
begun.
be huge because it once, right now they're making robots to perform a particular task. Like the Neuralink robot implants electrodes and it can do it better than a human can.
Mhm.
But it's a purpose-built thing. Once you have a humanoid robot with opposable thumbs that can
Yeah.
learn how to do whatever, then what do you need humans for?
Ideas.
Dude, I could go
I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I could go really deep right now, but it's too early.
It's too
And
early.
We gotta wait.
It's only
before we-
7:25. I mean,
No, it's too early in our series of podcasts.
Oh.
And I
Ooh.
don't think this is like some remote possibility because there's a huge profit motive to do this. Elon Musk thinks this Optimus robot's going to be the biggest company that has ever existed, according to him. That every human will have one of these. He's talking about like
Oh,
billions
like
of-
Rosie from the Jetsons.
yeah.
I get my Rosie.
yeah. There we go.
That's what it's going to look like. Peaceful.
No, man, I want Rosie.
All right, so we get all these.
Come on, man, the
we get
Jetsons.
these.
You never watched
robots.
it. You don't even know the Jetsons.
I know
are,
the
do you?
Jetsons and the Flintstones. I watched them.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
All right.
I like the Flintstones
I
better
thought
than
you-
Here's the Flintstone.
No, but I'm
Here's the
saying though.
Flintstone. How did the Jetsons
And
theme
see,
song go?
and they were split. See the Flintstones
Oh
were
my
and then the
goodness.
Jetsons, the same time frame.
It's a prophecy.
It's like you either
What?
got to go
The
back to the Stone
cartoons
Age.
were right. The cartoons are
You
always
got to go
right.
back to the Stone Age, or you got to go to the Jetsons. Where do you want to go?
I
You
like rocks a
want
lot, man.
Wilma.
I really like rocks.
Wilma actually. Wilma wore it well. I mean,
Yeah,
No.
I'll go with the Jetsons.
look at Lucas.
I don't even remember what I was
I
saying.
know. I'm so sorry, dude.
It's
I'm so
all-
sorry. I'm having fun tonight.
Good. I am too. I feel like this is a little bit more conversational, less questions.
This is cool stuff,
Yeah.
dude. So like,
Oh,
We've got some-
we're on robots.
No, we were talking about Richie Shoemaker.
We were talking about Richie.
Yeah, isn't that where it came from?
That's
Richie
where we
Shoemaker?
started. Yeah.
Yeah, because I really want to look up Richie Shoemaker, and then I'll make sure that you guys too get the link to the C60 labs as well,
Cool.
because it's really cool stuff. It is really cool stuff, and I'm seeing a lot of commonalities out there, a lot of things that are popping up. That it's like, man, it's like these people, if they start talking, it really could help people, in this region. Like if, like Richie Shoemaker, you said Pocomoke?
He's from Pocomoke. Yeah. He's retired and he's like super important in that world. Obviously, he created the whole thing. And
That's cool stuff.
These
man.
physicians that treat this disorder, they could charge basically whatever. They don't not covered by insurance. So all these people, paying out of pocket.
Well, dude, that's what I had. That's why I had my acupuncturist on here. It's because it's the same thing. It's not covered by insurance, and it's been huge for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's exactly why.
Yeah. So I really do want to talk to him or get into that world, because I also operate in the nursing program here on the shore, like the only one.
Yeah.
The college, and so he wants to have a big impact, on the world, and he's doing it. He's doing it through physicians, through naturopaths, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But he hasn't been able to break through into like mainstream medical. And it's very frustrating, I'm sure, because this is probably like the biggest thing, if it all turns out to be correct, which I'm not saying for sure it is, but if it is, then this is perhaps the biggest medical discovery and treatment plan, because it applies to something like a quarter of all.
Yeah, that's
I know, that's wild. That's why I saw it. You said 25%.
Yeah.
That's a huge number.
Yeah, and if you look into it more too, I'm curious to see what you would think, but for me, it really starts to explain. It's not that it's another thing, like chronic fatigue syndrome or fibromyalgia,
right?
Which is essentially just a cluster of symptoms, and then they throw a word on top of it.
That's right.
This is not that. It's explaining why actually both of those things are the same thing, and they have the common etiology, yet a different expression in one individual to another. And I mean, it actually makes sense. And like I said earlier, it makes more sense to me, like the more and more and more that I go down that rabbit hole. And this is like all I've been doing all day, every day for the last 2 weeks, like trying to learn as much of this as I possibly can, because I think I have to treat myself in some way, basically. And unfortunately, the treatment, number one, involves either moving out of your house or remediating your house so that you are not causing the problem in the first place.
Wow.
You're not housing the
I'd never thought about that before.
Oh my God. And it's so many unintended consequences. So apparently one of the worst substrates is a drywall that was painted with antifungal paint. Because of course, like you're biologists, right? If you kill all of the fungus, it's not like nothing is going to show up there. Just whatever it was competing with, now it has this free reign. So it turns out to be actinomyces bacteria, and they release as well, or they have in their cell wall, every gram-negative bacteria has endotoxin. And this is what they do, like experimentally, to make people feel sick. They inject you with endotoxin. So for example, and this is another interesting tie-over. Are you guys familiar with Wim Hof breathing?
No.
Or so you do this. You do this cyclic hyperventilation, like and then you breathe it all out.
Okay.
After like 30 breaths or so, and then hold your breath as long as you can, with no air in your lungs, and then take in a sharp intake of breath and hold it for 10 seconds. And you'll feel, or at least I feel, and many people feel, my head goes, like I feel this expansion, like this, like literally there's shit in my head. Like my head is stuffed and now it's clearing up.
Really?
And that's exactly what these people are saying. That is neuroinflammation. And now, and I don't know if people are broadly putting this together yet either. Wim Hof breathing is thought to operate by reducing inflammation through, inducing a hypoxic state. And
that's what it sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, so some of the studies around Wim Hof breathing, which is made by this guy, Wim Hof, who's, you've probably seen him. They call him the Iceman. He would swim under glaciers and, he's world records for cold exposure and holding his breath and stuff.
Okay.
Anyway, so because he can do these incredible things, he's been part of a number of investigations where he would train other people, just average person. And then they inject these people with endotoxin, which is, again, the cell wall, part of the cell wall of gram-negative bacteria. And it makes you have like flu-like symptoms. And these people were able to attenuate the response subjectively, like so they feel less sick, but also able to attenuate the blood markers of inflammation by doing Wim Hof breathing and cold exposure.
Wow.
In an objective, it's not just in their heads. Of course, it's also in your head. And that's not something like to dismiss, because that's also good, and you can actually train to do that.
Dude, you see that in the rice thing, right? Where you have 2 jars of rice, and this jar over here, you're speaking loving words and sweet nothings to. And then this jar over here, you go every day
cuss at it.
And after 30 days, this is completely black, right? The one that you were cussing at and you're talking about. The rice is completely black. And the rice over here is just as white as can be that you were, speaking sweet nothings to. So yes. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
I mean, it's
energy.
It is. So if you stay positive, it's harder for your body to break down to take in, you've already taken it in, but to allow your body to succumb to whatever it is that has entered, your corpse. But yeah, it's if you stay positive, part of that is like what you're saying, is that helps with not getting sick, not breaking down, not letting it get to you. Yeah. Like the first sniffle is not going to stop me. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to persevere. Yes, I 100% agree with that, but also that it's not sufficient, to solve the problem. Oh, right. Oh, right. And this guy, Shoemaker, one of the reasons I'm so like, oh my God. I mean, just in the last year, I've seen and read so many things that are like, oh my God, it just changes everything. But this is the latest one. And this is so far has been the most impactful other than AI. It's also saying Wim Hof and AI. No, Shoemaker. Shoemaker. Oh, yeah. Wim Hof has helped me personally, but there's not a whole lot there to Wim Hof. He's an interesting individual, but he's not like, I don't think he understands himself why what he's doing is working. Shoemaker, Wim Hof, and AI. But that sounds like a Shoemaker, Wim Hof, and AI. That sounds like a lawyer's firm or something.
That sounds like the Shoemaker group that will. Wait, we can't call it a group.
Oh, that's right.
We can't.
The climate equity group.
Yeah,
that's right.
Sounds
the
like
leaders of the climate equity group are Shoemaker, Wim Hof, and AI. I'm sorry. No.
Don't be sorry.
Yeah, not at all. What I was going to say is that it's not only a medical thing, but it's an indication that we're building buildings wrong.
Yes. I didn't even think, I've never thought about that in my life, that the way that we're conditioning and building our structures could harness specific bacteria.
Yeah, and it's linked to modern practices and
so that's your whole idea about measuring pollen outside versus inside.
Oh, yeah. So that's where we started. So once the AI is validated, I want to have an AI box outside of the building and inside of the building. And this is why, we'll close this circle, why I think the shore is
this is awesome.
Uniquely suited for this type of study, because at the college, I have perhaps the biggest community organization on the shore. Everybody on the shore lives in this one narrow strip of land. So we have more or less same exposures in that building. We all have the same indoor exposure. And then if I can survey people's health symptoms and so forth, perhaps even get them to do a VCS test. I'm thinking about that. Then I could correlate it to what's in the air. Unfortunately, the shitty part of all this is that biotoxins are too small to be seen under a microscope. So that's where my idea falls apart. But, the reason I started doing this was to figure out what was happening to me. And these people are saying, and I'm 90% convinced that they're right, that it is biotoxins that I can't see.
So how could we see them?
So that's what there's a number of ways, and I'm not convinced that I don't know a better way to say this. I'm not convinced that it matters because those biotoxins are thought to typically ride on top of something else, like other mold spores or dust or whatever other, physical object that's floating around the air. So if you could figure out which physical objects, I mean, it's probably spores.
Tires.
Or it could be tires. I mean, maybe. Then you're tracking those things, and I think also that perhaps they have only a small window of what is in the air that is causing these things to happen. And I think that is probably much wider. And they also think that as well, but they don't have a method of like looking at everything all the time. But with the AI sensor, you could look at everything all the time.
Yeah.
The biotoxins you can't look at unless you have some kind of biosensor, something that binds the toxin and I don't know, changes color or something. And that stuff is in development.
Could it pick up its vibration?
I don't know. I mean, it's an inert. It's not alive, so I'm not sure if it would have Brownian motion or not.
Yeah, if we excited it somehow.
I don't know.
That'd be really cool.
It would be really cool, and it it'd really be cool too to just holistic air monitoring. Period, because right now there's nobody, as far as I know, that monitors gases, particulates, pollen,
all right.
and
So,
spores.
All right. I'm sorry. I'm all over the place right now. But
That's what this podcast is about, dude.
Yeah. When I heard about these tire parts, I immediately thought, where are they all accumulating?
In the seagrass,
the trees, man.
And the trees. Yeah.
In the trees.
So
that's what he was just saying a while ago.
Yeah. I mean, from like a I-95, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of like New York City going through the Lincoln Tunnel.
Yeah.
Do the amount of, we know that. We know we're breathing all this junk.
Well, it ultimately does get in our waterways. So
that's where I'm going
exactly.
next.
We may have a lot more, than other places potentially. And we're going to look this summer in the eelgrass because there's a thought.
Okay, sweet.
I don't know if they already did this in Australia or if this is just a hypothetical, but the eelgrass is pretty thick. So as like shit is moving through the water,
it's sticky, man.
It gets stuck there.
It's sticky.
Yeah.
So I would expect there's going to be
drops velocity
way more
of the water. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's going to be way more tire particles in the eelgrass.
That's good to know.
Then
when are you
on
doing
land?
Hold on. Then in the water next to it.
Oh, okay.
We're also going to be looking at the air over top of the water. That's the part I'm doing. I can't really look at the water because you need to have a more quantitative technique because there is a bunch of stuff in the water that looks black.
Yeah.
Unlike the air, it's not sufficient to just kind of like look at it.
When are you doing this study? This test.
Let's see.
That's cool stuff.
That is cool stuff.
I guess it's probably starts. May. It begins May 29th.
So it's coming up quick.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a. They're doing it. I have my student is going to go work with them. I may go. Here.
Is it
there.
VIMS?
It's it's actually both UVA and
nice.
VIMS.
We're collaborating.
I think
this is great.
Hold on. It may be UVA and ODU. I'm not. I'm having trouble remembering because the guy Luke, he's a guy graduate student I've been working with a lot. Luke,
okay.
Luke Groff, and it just turned out his girlfriend is Robin. She's the one that's looking at the tire wear particles. Yeah. So it's just kind of
we could have Luke. We could have Luke and Robin. You said Robin? What's her name?
Yeah, Robin. I don't remember.
We could have Luke and Robin on it and ask them about their study.
We should.
Oh, and Luke is an interesting guy to talk to because he's looking at the benthic microalgae in the eelgrass and what proportion of carbon that they're capturing, and perhaps I hate to even say this, perhaps we're undervaluing the
we definitely
carbon
are.
Credits that we're giving to Shell and Exxon or whatever,
right?
Because there's more of it being captured as well, and these tiny things that we're not measuring. But it's not clear because little stuff also tends to stay around for a little while.
Yeah.
And it could be because they're in the grass that it's falling down and getting into the substrate and getting stuck there. Maybe they do stay around for a long time. I don't think he knows yet.
Okay.
But
but we're going to find out.
He would know.
That's cool.
Yeah.
We're going to find out.
Yeah.
And he's working with us to evaluate our capstone program. He's taking a big detour in his PhD. And his final chapter of his thesis is all about analyzing our capstone program and the effect of internships and mentorship on students' feelings of agency and well-being and all that stuff.
Have fun with it.
That's kind of cool.
Have fun with it. That's awesome,
Yeah.
man. Because that's going to be, that's something he's always going to remember. That's cool stuff.
Yeah, it's very interesting. We're all kind of just making it up as we go along.
That's all we can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that VIMS is doing like a summer seminar series
yeah.
too.
I think that's not tomorrow, but the day after.
It
right?
is.
You gonna be there?
I'm gonna be there. Yeah.
Okay. I plan to be there too. What day is that?
I think it's the 7th.
Is that a Wednesday?
It's a Wednesday, 7th at 7 p.m. I
Okay.
believe. Something about
Oh.
shellfish.
Yeah. I have to do. I think it's a space. I can't even remember. My son has to go to some space. Oh yeah, he's doing the Space Flight Academy. I think it's called.
That's awesome.
Ooh.
That's
This-
awesome. I've worked with them.
Okay, so
a
you know what I'm
lot.
talking about.
Yes.
I don't
Yeah.
know what I'm talking about.
That's cool stuff. That's cool. Yeah.
So they have a presentation Wednesday that's immediately before that one. So
Mm.
I'm
All right.
try to get to both. Yeah.
That's cool.
I'm trying to support them in their, the seminar series. I had no idea that was even a.
I didn't
A
either,
thing.
right? Like that's so typical Eastern
Yeah.
Shore, though. We've
You
all
know
got
that-
stuff going on. We don't know what our neighbor's doing. You know.
You know that group? I think it's called Science and Philosophy or something like that.
No, I don't.
Yeah, there's a group of basically retirees who every Friday meet at the community college to discuss like whatever life and meaning and purpose and
Ooh.
yeah, and it's just them and never anybody from the college, and they don't have anything. We don't have anything to
Science
do
and
with each other.
philosophy.
I believe that's the name of the
Okay.
group.
That's
yeah.
cool.
That
That's
is
cool
cool.
stuff.
I love that.
We got to have you back on. I came back on. Go
Got to have you back on.
Especially after these studies and stuff.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, dude. Did you come back on and talk some more?
Yeah, of
This
course.
is cool stuff.
And speaking of community, another thing that I'm doing right now, I started this crowdfund campaign to pay students to. Oh, you have students too.
I do have students.
To clean the highways or
Ah.
the roadways, and have to be a highway.
Okay.
So they get paid to do it. I started doing this, and it turns out that Waste Watchers already does this. So,
Oh.
Waste Watchers.
yep, Waste Watchers, ESVA. So I'm still raising money, and I'm going to give it to Waste Watchers, and then they'll pay a student or a group of students $15 per bag or tire, which, according to the president of Waste Watchers, turns out to be more than $15 an hour. And as long as you're 16 or over, you can do it. So do you have students that are in that?
Yeah.
Okay.
In that
cool.
category. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
Willing to work. Debatable.
Oh, for money?
No.
Yeah.
Whippersnappers.
You're not sure, huh? Well,
So for a whole tire, I get $15.
yeah.
If I find a tire on the side of the road, I get $15.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
I know.
Or a bag of trash.
I'm excited to do it. Yeah.
Yo.
I got like 10 tires in my
Well,
backyard right now.
Yeah. And
That's where I'm going. Like,
You know
what if I just bring a bunch of tires?
Uh-huh.
But I've always wondered, like, it would be cool to walk like from the Maryland all the way like state line, like down 13, see how far I could get in the day.
Okay.
Maybe I'll do it with a couple trash bags,
Yeah, why
you know?
not?
All right.
Yeah. They so VDOT will pick, if you want them to, they pick the worst spot, which is what I want, because I want to make some money.
That's right.
You know?
The most tires possible.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, they're talking about like, people walking away with $600.
What?
Excuse me, not 600, below 600, because you don't want to give a 1099, but like hundreds.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's sweet.
Yeah.
Well, that's crazy because I was just thinking about ways that we can incentivize people to actually care about pollution.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. That's kind of what was motivating
Take
this.
them to Africa and where all the computers over there are recycled. Take them over there to the burn pits and stuff of those countries and say, this right here is why you need to care.
Yeah.
You know that?
It is so tough though, because I think, everybody should be able to agree that it's a good idea to pay young people to carry out like a useful task.
Yeah, something beneficial to our society.
Yes. And then, there's going to be people who are like, well, I don't believe in taxation, it's theft or whatever. And I get that idea because,
40%.
there's some amorphous group that's taking money from you and they're using it for something that's not necessarily tangibly to your benefit. Well, this is. You
Yeah.
give the money and we're going to clean shit.
Yeah.
That's cool stuff.
That is cool.
You would think perhaps that people would be very like interested and motivated to
Yeah.
do this. And I would say that basically they're not.
You
Yeah.
would say basically.
I think I've raised, when I checked it earlier today, I've made $375 in my,
You have personally?
well, the
campaign. The campaign.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I set a goal of, I think, 1,200, because that would pay, I don't remember what the math was, like 5 people for 4 hours or something like that. And the money doesn't really matter anymore because Waste Watchers also has their own sponsors that'll give money. But I've been both impressed by how much money a few individuals have given, but also how little interest. I don't know if this is the right way. Like, lots of people shared it, lots of people liked it, but very few
Nobody
people,
wants to take action.
Where are these people?
Yeah.
Where's Waste Watchers?
where
like
they
what
physically located. I don't know.
What region do they do? Because, dude,
Oh,
I mean,
the whole shore. So they
they
have
need to come down where we live and all the way to the dump or whatever you call it, the waste station, like along that whole entire stretch there is like disgusting.
Yeah.
Oh, well, they're open to suggestion for sure. They're an independent organization now. Waste Watchers apparently is a national organization, and our local chapter was, for whatever reason, unhappy. And don't quote me on this. Just my interpretation of what I was told with how the national group was operating. So now they're just totally independent.
Okay.
So, I think they'll be open to suggestion and different types of arrangements.
Come on, I want to talk to the people out there before we go. Because I really want to thank you for coming on. This was awesome.
We got a lot of like really cool stuff.
Man, I
whenever
look,
you're on,
I never take notes.
That's true.
I got a whole. I never take notes because man, there's stuff in here that I want to like really understand. So thank you. Again, so much for coming on. We'll hope to have you back on soon. We've got this whole month we're booked up. It's so cool.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. We have Giovanni Rosanova is coming on. He is the acting deputy director of NASA Wallops right now.
Oh, really?
So he's actually the chief of the Sounding Rocket office.
Fancy.
And Giovanni's one cool cat. He's a cool dude, lives on Chincoteague, and so he's coming on next week. Cool and then we have Ted Shockley's coming back on. Ted Shockley from the newspaper.
Yeah,
we had him
free
on.
Marketing right there.
And he's coming back on. And then we're gonna have Blake Johnson from the Island House Restaurant. He's coming on in
you should
2
get
weeks.
Jim Schaefer.
So yes.
Before he's gone. For real.
Yeah.
The president of the college.
Yeah.
I think he would do it.
Would he do it?
I think so.
That'd be super cool.
He's about to leave. He's on his way out. So this would be a good time for him to do it.
Yes, definitely. I want to hear some stories.
Yeah, and it'd be great to also have his take on like where we're going.
Exactly. That's exactly what we want to know. Where are we going, dude?
What should the next person be?
Of course,
doing?
I want to say dude, but
You can say dude. He's a very doodly dude.
Is he?
He abides.
He does abide.
So Jim Schaefer. So for the rest of you guys out there who are actually watching this and enjoying this, we want to know who you want to see on here. We want to hear your comments about what you like about these programs and who from the shore, these personalities that are out there, who that we are actually going to bring on and highlight and to get out to the world. There's so many people that are moving here from all across the world and they want to know about this place. And so give us the storytellers, give us the really genuine people, give us the people that really care about this place, and let's get it out there. Let's get their story out there. So that's all I had to say before we stop. But please support us.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
I think we'll link maybe your website in the description and maybe a link to the July conference. I'm going to be there. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
And we can talk about that.
And we can talk about that after that.